it's, I mean, like you're saying, I mean, it could come off as so trite, just like, oh, hey, we need to re-examine everything, but like we need to re-examine everything. And, with all those examples, with the Pogues, with, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, you give so many concrete examples. And, and again, it's not like you remove yourself from the phrase, so to speak, and you're like, you know what? I never liked Woody Allen anyway. Manhattan's a horrible movie. Like you were a fan of John Lennon, and there's, nothing necessarily to crucify him for, but it's just like Yoko Ono was like we were talking about before we started recording. She's seen as like the butt of the jokes, and she was the one who came in the middle of them. And the Beatles could still be together today, but just this
Oh,
idea of re-examining is really what I'm left with so much.
yeah. I mean, so right, like so even, there's the malevolent male artist
Mm-hmm.
whose own, when we talk about can you separate the art from the artist, in some cases I feel like you really can't, because
Yeah.
Woody Allen's whole deal is imbued throughout his body of work. There's such
Mm-hmm.
a thin, not even plausible deniability line between, who he appears, at least now, kind of having been told what we've been told about
Yeah.
him, who he is as a person versus like how that manifests itself in his work, really becomes like, I don't think we're supposed, like, what are we participating in here,
Mm-hmm.
right? um but at the same time, even, male artists like Shane MacGowan, who, again, I love Shane MacGowan, I love the Pogues, but seeing Cat O'Riordan was a transformative experience for me. And I think that made me really question why is it so much harder for women and women artists, for their stories to be considered as important,
Mm.
and for their work to be, for them to be considered as artists, geniuses, in the same way that I just feel like it is, we much more freely give that label to men than we
Yeah.
do to women. And we see that with John and Yoko as well. And no matter how much, even like, Double Fantasy, that last album of theirs, they were
Mm-hmm.
adamant, John was adamant, about we're not going to have John's side and Yoko's side.
It
These
was a
songs
code,
are,
right?
yeah, these songs are in dialogue with each other, in conversation with each other. There's going to be one, and then they're going to alternate tracks.
Mm.
They were a creative collaboration, and yet we still have people like, like I did as a little kid, going like, ugh, it's too, like, I'm
Yeah.
just going to fast forward through those
Oh
tracks. I
no.
just want to focus on really the easier John stuff. And coming back to Double Fantasy as an adult, after having, the John tracks be so formative for me as a little kid, I was like, Yoko Ono is amazing. And,
Mm.
I am certainly not the first person to realize that.
Right, right.
But I didn't know at the time, when I was growing up as a teenager, I didn't know that like her songs were considered by critics to be the cool ones off that
Mm-hmm.
album. By the time John Lennon had been dead for that many years, he was, and this was sort of mirrored a little bit, my relationship to my parents too. The dead father is allowed to sort of become kind of saint-like in his absence.
Mm-hmm.
The woman who stays alive, you know, doesn't really get that same sort of halo effect.
Yes. Well, you obviously, I mean, like you're right about you. It's impossible for you to be objective, and that's what makes part of what makes the book great. If you had a completely unnuanced, if that's a word, if you had a completely objective north-south polar opposite eye for it, it wouldn't be as great of a book. It's real life, so it doesn't have necessarily a happy ending, but without ruining it, I love the last image. I love the last part of the book. I love the last sentence about driving. And it was just a really, because I mean, this happened when your mom was not even 20 yet, right? I mean, if we're talking about like her years on the road and stuff. And it's like, I'm
Yeah.
sure, I know, and throughout the book she's had so many different eras, so many different, you know, phases of her life. And so it's not like that just, that limits her, that defines her. So long story short, way of saying, incredible work. It's great to talk to you. I appreciate you talking about something that's so personal, and I appreciate you sharing something that's so personal with the world. Thank you so much for writing the book, and thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation, so in depth, and I really appreciate all of the attention that your show puts on craft and on literature as well.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. There's no other way, and I look forward to to talking to you maybe when the second memoir or the next book comes out. Thank you so much.